Hey, stop it.
All right, we are good to go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Weiria, and I am the Manufacturing Support Manager at Wepco Plastics. And today we are going to be discussing converting communication from a buzzword to a mindset. And I am very excited to have these three with me today. We have Christina Fugis from Mold Making Technology Magazine, Sydney Hebert from Wepco Plastics, and Tony Dominguez from Alliance Laser Sales. And Christina, do you mind starting us off and introducing yourself?
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, Amanda. And hello, Sydney and Tony. Good to see you guys. This is a great topic. So I am with Mold Making Technology, the brand. We have a magazine, we have a website, we're present across all social media channels. We have conferences, we have a trade show. So we're pretty much all about communication. So I am very grateful that you've invited me to come talk about this topic. And I've been with the publication since it launched back in the late 90s, we'll say.
That's safe.
Yes, a safe.
All right, Tony, you're up next.
So I'm Tony Dominguez from Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, and we do all things mold finishing and repair, which means polishing, laser welding, laser engraving, hot runner, manifold cleaning. We also sell laser welding and engraving equipment, which means we have a lot to do. So our communication has to be on point. Otherwise, nobody gets it. Through that, we've started a podcast called the Manufacturing Alliance, which Christina is a part of as well. Wepco has also been on that show. And another part of that has been chat and chows that we do because we saw a lack of communication and contact during this last 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it's been. So I think communication is a huge part of any business, and not just business, but relationship. So I'm really excited to talk with y'all.
I love it. Thank you for joining us. All right, Sydney, you want to finish us off?
Yep, I'm Sydney Hebert from Wepco Plastics. I am a creative development coordinator, do social media and marketing for Wepco. Plastic injection molding and mold building is what Wepco does. So I'm excited learning new things about communication every day.
And we have a couple customers that are watching, a couple people from the AMBA and MAP. So feel free to join us in on the chat, guys. We've got it going on our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook. So Sydney, I'm going to start you off in the hot seat with our question of the day. What is your definition of communication and what does it mean to you?
All right, so we've done a lot of talk about this over the past year with crazy COVID, but communication generally is exchanging ideas or news or information. It's relaying those ideas, but what makes communication tough is that people receive information and send information in many different ways. So there's effective communication and ineffective communication. My instinct is to say communication is relaying messages effectively, but sometimes we can do so in ineffective ways. I think that's interesting.
That's a good point. Christina, how would you define it for you?
So in my world of media and mold making technology, and this is a really good question, by the way, Amanda, I would say it is actively sharing and listening. So whether that's sharing your story, advice, a strategy, a challenge, a solution, a trend, a technology, whatever it is, communication to me is sharing. And what's interesting from my perspective is that was the reason that mold making technology was created by Joe Prishak, who was with the Plastic Group back in the 90s. He was the original founder of mold making technology, and he was also a mold maker. And the reason for the magazine was because he saw the need for mold builders to share. In order to get better and to grow, they had to share, they had to communicate. So it was his idea to create a publication at that time, and that was its mission, and that has been its mission all these years. So the way we communicate over the years has changed, especially now with COVID, but that mission has always been the same, and it is sharing. And that word communication and community, which mold making and molding has a very strong community. I think it's very tied together very nicely. So sharing and listening.
I love that. That goes right along with something Tony has always said. When we learn together, we grow together. And he has been a great partner to Wepco and really embodying that over the years. So Tony, how does that fit in with how you define communication and what it means to you?
I think communication for me is the foundation for trust. and a way to work together, right? So what we're learning very quickly here is that we all communicate very differently, and what we take for granted. For instance, if somebody has a job that's being polished, right? What we think an A2 is, what they think an A2 is, totally different things. So we think we're communicating on one level, but we're way off, right? So it's trusting each other to be able to have a conversation to say, okay, I'm not trying to insult you. What do you think an A2 is? What does that mean to you? And being able to be vulnerable and let your guard down and actually have a conversation about what that is, so that you can learn what's expected of each other, right? And communication has to be honest, it has to be open, and it has to be authentic. If you are just talking and you're spewing nonsense and you don't believe it and it's not true to who you are, it's not doing any good, and it's not communication. It's just blah. I think Sydney and I had a conversation about that a while back about, if you're going to do videos, if you're going to do whatever you're going to do, you should be authentically you, because that's all you have to offer. The rest of it's all just fluff. So for me, communication is just honesty, it's trust, it's authenticity, and it's helping the other person that you're talking to grow in what they're trying to do and achieve their best results.
I like that. That ties in with a little bit of what Christina said too, is are we going to define communication by what we're putting out or by what someone might be receiving in? Because is it really communication if we're just sharing it, but no one's listening and no one's receiving it?
Exactly.
And that's something that we've talked about quite a bit at WEPCO through some of the different communication training that we've done, and especially this year with how communication has changed. So Christina, what would you say is the biggest change you've seen in communication with your audience over this past year?
With the audience this past year, it's definitely trying to I want to say that the remote work, assuming a lot of people, at least for a shutdown, a portion of the time people were home. But in manufacturing, that wasn't so much. Like, I don't work in a shop, so I've always been working remotely. But the way we deliver the content, there's a portion of time where all we were doing was digital. With trade shows is a huge growth aspect to Gardner Business Media, the parent company. So all trade shows, as you guys have known, have become virtual. So it's the delivery of the same content. It's strictly the delivery method has had to change to be where they are and get them all the places they are. Because mentioned to you earlier, a lot of people have changed their print delivery back to their homes. So they still are craving that content, that information. I know you guys know that too, because you're on the other side of it and you want it. So it's a matter of communicating that through video, through virtual conferencing, through digital demos. We started these technical days where they're pretty much mini conferences. They're half-day things where people are presenting. And my MMT chat series that you saw, it's all the same personality of the brand that we've built, but it is a way to be in front of people, at least to make them feel like you are when you're not physically there. So I know you're going to talk about that later on, but I know me tackling that myself and getting comfortable being on camera has introduced me to people I did not know, which is unbelievable to me, considering I relied on going to shops and going to trade shows. And how comfortable they've become being on camera themselves it's been that give and take. I've been shocked how accepting they've been. I mean, this industry. I mean, they're a proud group of people, but when it comes, they're in their shops heads down doing that kind of work. So to put them on camera and have them talk to me and then put that out there, I think that's a great, what do you want to call it? It's just a real huge step forward in terms of marketing in this industry, that they're okay with that. And I guarantee you, they're all going to start doing that themselves to get the word out about what they're doing. It's this COVID. I keep hearing people say that it's been the great accelerator of a lot of things. We were headed this way anyway. It's just making us get there faster. So it's not so much the type of content as the delivery method has changed dramatically, and that impacts just the technology you need, a better microphone, headset, your computer, your bandwidth. I mean, you name it. We didn't have to worry about that before. Now you do. And so do they. So
I think that's a great point. I think COVID was kind of our push towards technology. We were all headed towards video. We knew it was coming. We've been looking at it at WEPCO for, I think, 3 years now. Charles and I have known it's important. We want to head down that road, but we really didn't have that push until it was our only option for a trade show. It was our only option to do a mirror mold, was to film service videos, to do profiles of our staff. And Sydney started with us last year, went full time right in the beginning of 2020. And so she got settled, and pretty much we had to go virtual with videos. So Sydney, do you want to talk a little bit about what we did for mirror mold, and then also the video blog that you've been working on?
Yeah, real quick, Christina, to your point about making somebody feel like you're in front of them when you can't be. That was huge for me through all of this, is when I communicate, or when somebody's trying to communicate something to me, I'm really big on eye contact and just letting them know that I care, because I do. I want to hear what you have to say. And it's tough. We can't really do that through email, or we can do it through video to an extent, but it's not the same. It really emphasized and made me conscious of the impact my words can have, even if they're on a screen through email or through any platform. They're powerful, and I had to really be picking and choosing what I was putting on the page, even more so than I already was, because I'm not face to face with somebody over lunch or, everything we used to do. A mirror mold really forced us, like you said, into going digital. We even considered some of our own virtual trade shows, and we threw that idea around, and it really forced us to do everything online and be, like Tony said, authentic and real in the process, which is tough. There's a lot of the same words being thrown around.
That's the truth.
Yeah. It was difficult, but it was really good for us. And now I think it just makes our regular efforts with social media and through reaching our customers online, it made that a lot easier. So that's a positive point to what we had to overcome.
And one great thing that I think has come out of it is Tony's chat and chows. It's been a way for us to get to know some people in the industry that maybe never would have gotten to sit down across the table from you when you're doing the podcast. And what's also kind of neat about that is getting to see everybody in their element. Tony's in his office and his element, and we've gotten to see some other great people in the industry and hear from them.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the first chat and chow was with Hillary from Westminster, and, it's the way I kind of start. I start where I'm comfortable, right? I mean, that's the way everybody starts things, and with the people that you can trust, right? Like, you don't know that the first podcast is going to go smoothly. You don't know that the first thing is going to happen without any wrinkles. So you want to do that with the people you trust, that you can experiment with and be authentic and not have to stress out about those things. And what Hillary and I realized very quickly is that we were both very optimistic and passionate, and all we wanted to do was talk about positivity, because there was so much negative going on. So when we started the chat and chow, the idea was you can talk about anything. It just can't be negative. It's got to have a positive, optimistic spin on it, because that's what people want to hear. That's what people want. And, it was born out of this idea that we're all tired of being in our own space and not being able to see people or connect with people or talk to people. And when you do, you don't know what to talk about, and you just miss the water cooler and the lunch table and all that goes along with that. So, communication is a huge part of our lives, whether it's about work or what you watched on TV or what your kids are doing, whatever. And we all got so ingrained to, now we're working from home. There's no one to talk to. And when you talk to somebody at work, it's got to be about work, because you're working from home. There's no fun time. And it just became a release. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's pretend like we're at work. Let's pretend that we're sitting around the lunch table. And it was really important that other people be able to jump on. So like, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, wherever that is, once people started to be part of that conversation, it brought so much more life to it, instead of just a Q&A, right? Because then you're just listening to people go on, and that has its place. But when other people are chiming in, you're recognizing if what you're saying makes sense, if you're actually communicating or if you're just blathering on. So my favorite part is when people jump in and they throw in questions and we can answer them on the fly, because that's what's missing. There's plenty of places on YouTube where you can just watch people talk, but there's not that opportunity to engage and connect with people. And that's what I like most about doing those little videos.
Yeah, that is a big part of what we lost this year for the industry. And especially for us at Webco, was that engagement point.
Yep.
We were at a great spot last year. We were doing lunch and learns and playing Jenga as a team and team building exercises. We're doing, family feud and scavenger hunts and these different fun ways of incorporating continuous improvement and lean and 5S into our daily activities together. We missed our opportunity where we all normally get together in July and support Westminster in their 5K. We weren't able to do our cornhole at Webco. So it's been a challenge for us to keep the conversation going within Webco. We have a professor at UConn that has done some communication workshops with us, and that's kind of been his tagline, is keeping the conversation going. And we really struggled with that during COVID. And, hindsight is always better. There's definitely ways I see now that we would have changed things, been more proactive about keeping that conversation going. And Tony, I'd love to hear some things that you guys maybe did at Alliance or maybe wish you had done better through that challenge. Because I know for those of us that have been on the shop floor through this, it's been difficult to communicate when you have team members at home, you have customers who are at home and maybe not in their work environment anymore.
So the dangerous part of trying to do this virtual communication is people don't, they just walk in, or it is what it is. And what's cool is I think people have gotten a lot more forgiving about that, right? Like professionalism is still there, but it's dropped a little bit. It's not like, oh my gosh, they're going to hear my kids. They're going to hear the dog. They're going to people have kind of relaxed a little bit, which I think is a good thing. And that goes to what you were asking me. So one of the things that we did very early on is we made sure that everybody primarily the women, because they are the people that take care of the kids more often. Let's be honest. I mean, Christina, your husband is a rarity. But we made sure that all the girls could work from home right away. We got them set up with laptops. We increased their internet access if we needed to. We made sure that there was ways for them to do their job without having to come in, and ways that we could communicate. And that was, we were very early on that because the Illinois governor shut down the schools, and we thought, well, now we're in trouble. Because people can't go to work if their kids aren't going to school. So we jumped on that right away. And then we had as much in-person interaction as possible. And we minimized phone calls and increased FaceTime, right? So where something typically would have been a phone call, or a conference call, we were then trying to make that a FaceTime as much as possible, because I think seeing people made a big difference, right? Coming into work, I started coming into work early on because, again, what are you communicating? If I tell people that they have to be on the shop floor, but I'm going to stay at home, I'm communicating that it's safe for them, but not for me. My life is more important. I wanted everybody to know that I was right there with them. We're all in this together, and we're moving forward as a team. And our shop is safe, and it's no more for you or for me. It is what it is. And still going around and talking to people and not giving false hope about where we're at, but just communicating on a daily basis, whether it was talking to them in person or putting out a memo from the company. This is where we are today. This is what's happening. This is what we know. As soon as something changes, we're going to let you know. And just being open and honest, and not pretending like we had answers that we didn't, but just communicating. And then, I learned quickly that sometimes my texts get misread. I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm saying. I know how I mean it, but not everybody sees it that way.
I will tell you one thing about that on that note. Emojis have become very important during this COVID, because I can totally have been told, okay, I'll get a phone call. Are you okay? Is something wrong? So I've learned to put that smiley face in there so they read it with the right tone. So I just wanted to pop that in there.
Yep. No, and that's one of the things I learned, right? And it's prompted conversations like, okay, I understand that you're upset with me. I'm not sure what I did. And then they would read back the text, and I would go, yeah, well, I don't understand the problem. But it's the way that, whatever mood you're in when you're reading that, that's how you take it. And so I realized very quickly that, I thought I was communicating properly, but there's so much more to the visual of seeing somebody than just the message that you're saying. And Sid, the hardest thing, you mentioned eye contact on video. I want to look at you when you're talking, but if I look at you when you're talking, I'm looking at the door. So I got to not look at you and just stare at the camera, which is
Right.
so awkward and difficult to do, but
Yeah,
it's
it feels
a skill
impersonal
set.
almost. Yeah.
I like
That's
that, Tony. And I think it's a good reminder that even if when we're not communicating verbally, we're communicating.
Yeah.
If we're walking through the shop floor and we look upset or we're just having an off day, the staff feels that, and they feel that on a normal day, but much less during COVID. It wasn't a time where we could walk through that shop having our own struggles. We really had to work as a leadership team that when we came in that building, we left all that stuff outside so that everything we were communicating with our words and our body language was showing them that, we're here, we're in this as a team, we're going to figure this out. Sydney's been a great addition to the Webco team and polishes up our words all the time, but it's also, we just have to make sure we polish up our body language too and what we're representing to the team.
And it's so hard because I've had people here tell me like, you're always in a good mood. You're never upset. And, it's a conscious decision, right? To leave whatever I'm feeling in my office. When I walk out the door, I flip a switch. And it's not that I'm pretending to be in a good mood, but not everybody needs to know what I'm going through at a given time, and when they do need to know what I'm going through, I tell them. But
how do you balance that with, and I know, Tony, we've talked about this before. How do you balance that in today's environment with people in your companies that are uncomfortable and are depressed and are scared, and you're whether you might feel that way inside, but you're not putting that out there. How do you guys, out of curiosity, have made your shop a safe place, a place where don't be embarrassed if you're uncomfortable with the state of things, right? How do you deal with that?
So for us, we had one of the girls was very uncomfortable. She worked at home for a long time. One of her family members was compromised, and she wanted to make sure that there was no possible way that she was going to pick something up here and bring it back to them. So she's been at home the whole time. We let her continue working from home, even though other people came in. She came in one day a week. We told her that, listen, you can go in your office, you close the door, you lock the door, nobody comes in, you don't have to come out to talk to anybody. And we just put things in place, and we let everybody know, listen, you may not think that this is a big deal. You may not think it's a real thing. You may not get it mentally that other people do, but they do. And we just have to be cognizant of that and respect where everybody is.
I mean, that's a real culture thing, right? So you
It
guys,
is.
I mean, all the shops that we've learned over the years, culture is just huge. So you work on this culture, and then wham, something like this comes where maybe up until this point, you felt united, you all felt strong, you all felt like you're on the same page. And then this mask and what's going on right now is completely polarizing. So you could have people that maybe were best friends within the shop are now like, well, gosh, he's that or she's that. And I think that's a separate issue that I don't know that a lot of people are talking about that can really hurt a culture. If you're not communicating,
right?
And in an election year. Yeah. And that's communication, right?
And I think that our culture is it directly shows our communication and how we value that communication. And for us, it's, are you going to go have that courageous conversation with that person and go, I noticed you seem uncomfortable. You don't seem yourself. Or are we going to go, all right, they're getting their job done. Yes. And we leave it be. And I think that's what we've really been trying to flip that switch of, all right, we don't want communication to just be what Sid puts out in the blog once a month or the newsletter. We want people to know we want to communicate on the floor. We want to talk about the jobs we're making for the customers. We want to talk about, are you happy? Do you feel like you're adding fulfillment to the team? Or if you're having a challenge, can we help you through that?
As somebody who joined the team this past year, and like you said, saw things normally for a couple of months and then COVID happened, I think something that defined Webco was our snack and learns and our ability to connect and to talk, and President Dave coming around and giving fist bumps, physical high fives. And I think that was something that defined Webco. So it's been tough for us to find new ways to do that. Like Dave will come around and give verbal affirmations, and we're trying to throw the idea around of virtual snack and learns. But that is something that's so important to us to connect, and also just as a creative development coordinator, I want to represent these people properly, and they deserve to be represented properly. And so it's tough not being able to come into the shop as often and have those face-to-face conversations. And yeah, it's very different, but things are starting to look up a little bit. I did want to mention that we just implemented something called an open door, open hour. So we are allowing an hour on Wednesdays for people to come in if they're comfortable and talk to Amanda about anything they want to talk about.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. We've only done it for what, 2 weeks, Amanda, 3 weeks.
Mhm.
So we're hoping that picks up and that people can feel, that same culture that they felt before.
And
You're
I
lucky
even
I'm
think
not there. I would come up with some stuff
would.
that I want to
Oh,
talk.
I know you would.
yeah, we would.
Door
I
would
like
be closed for Tony.
I like what you said before, Tony, too, just in terms of like being yourself and I just lost my train of thought. What Cindy just said. Something about that open door policy. I mean, I really like that because I was talking to someone in the industry, and through this time, I know it was Tony. You were always talking about work. When you get somebody from your work environment and you're always talking about work, you have to make a concerted effort. And I started to do that to when you're talking to someone, literally do not talk about work. Ask them because I work from home for 20 years now. So I'm used to remotely. I think I've gotten some strategies. I wish I could actually think about that more to see what my strategies are, that I feel very connected to my gardener team virtually. And I don't know I don't know how that happens, but I actually feel as part of their family virtually. I've been doing that. But through this time, it is making a concerted effort to not just talk about work and check in on people on their home life and their family life and their health and how they're thinking and politics and movies, whatever it is. So that resonated me with Tony because I am not really like that. When I'm in work mode, I'm like calling, I'm very to the point. Like my emails are short and brief and get this done. And I got to retrain myself as part of a team to communicate differently that way because I am a caring, loving, light person. But when I'm in work mode, I just want to get it done. And sometimes I think I project my feelings about work onto the other person, and everyone does not work that way. And I have to understand and accept that, especially now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feeds right into what we are going to talk about is, how do we transfer everything that we have digitally, everything we're going to continue to do. Like Sid said, we're probably going to take our snack and learns virtual. We have shifts arranged in a different way now, that way that everyone has an opportunity to do it and no one misses out. But when we do that, we have virtual trade shows, virtual snack and learns. How do we not lose that personal touch element? How are we still connecting as humans with one another?
So I think, for me, sorry, Sid.
Oh, go right ahead.
I'm looking straight ahead. You're like in the peripheral. I think it's I don't know how to say it any other way than making sure that that a smile comes through in the words that you're saying if people can't see you, right? Whether that's texts or whatever, when COVID first happened, we were sending out birthday cards to everybody when their birthday would come. And then we weren't doing it because I didn't want to take something that I had. This is before you know anything, right? I didn't want to take something that I'm licking the envelope and then mailing it to people and they don't want it. So then I started sending ridiculous like birthday video texts to people, just like, so for a little bit of lightheartedness, right? Yeah. And stop taking everything so seriously because, Christina, you've been working at home for X amount of years. There's people that when I was working from home, it was more stressful for me than when I was in the office because I've got more distractions. I got my kids there. Kelly and I are sharing the same table. I'm in her space. She's in my space. I know that I'm listening to music too loud or I'm talking on a call too loud and I'm annoying her. And there's all these stresses that you don't realize that other people are going through. So you're in one space and you're totally good. You're used to working at home. It's a nice, quiet space. Other people, they're sitting at the dining room table and their kids are running around. They're trying to entertain them because they can't go outside. They can't do this. And it's just like, you got to take a pause and say, hey, how's it going? What's happening?
Yep.
And one of the things, if they would, sometimes, guys in the shop or whatever, they would mention something that's going on in their house or whatever, and then being able to share back with them and not just go, oh, that sucks for you, but being able to have some empathy and relate and then say, yeah, I got the same thing, man. This is what's going on, so that they don't feel like they're alone, right? That they're not the only one going through it. Celebrating the positives and also, dealing with the scary unknowns at the same time, and just being vulnerable enough with, everybody that you work with, whether they're, the sweeper or the CFO or whatever they are, just letting your guard down a little bit and being real and honest and open in all the things that you're doing, and realizing that you may have to not just write a not stern, that's the wrong word, straightforward email without any emotion,
direct. Yeah.
adding a little bit more so that people can feel that personality.
Yeah, Tony, I could not agree more with that. I think we need to keep asking those questions. Nobody wants in my newsletters company update after company update without me caring about how they're actually doing. It doesn't really matter unless I know how they're doing. Same with our customers. It's when you're in a friendship, you want to know about the other person and they want to know about you. That's a given. It's
Yep.
easy. I don't even have to say that. But when it comes to our customers, no one wants to receive sales email after sales email. They probably want to be asked, like, what do you need? Like, how can I help you? The good thing that brings us all together during this time is that no one's been through this before. This is new for everyone. And we're all
Common ground.
each other and relying on each other.
And I think that really reflects on what we saw when this first started happening. I was at my kitchen island with the computer on one side, my son's laptop on the other, the Bluetooth speaker going with COVID webinar number 19 of the day or whatever it was, trying to catch us up on where the economy's headed and, the PPP loans and all that stuff. And our customers really still wanted to engage because they're sitting at home doing the exact same thing I am. And I learned so much about so many of them that I had no idea about before COVID. We do our little direct emails and confirm orders, and yes, we're still in business and we're still taking your orders and how can we help? And then at the end, we throw in little stories about our day or our new COVID environment. But it was a real way to kind of bond and engage together that we hadn't had before or hadn't made the opportunity to have before. It's probably a better way to say that.
I also think that, what you said, Amanda, I was doing the same thing. I had every COVID update going. I had everything. And it was like all this bad screaming at me all the time. And it was affecting my mood and everything else. And I had to remind myself that those people don't know anything either. And, we just have to be comfortable knowing that, at least I believe, that this is all predetermined anyways, right? Like I know that I believe that there's somebody in control of this and it's not a human, right? God is in control. He knows what he's doing. He put it all in motion for a reason. And once I remember that, I can keep a positive attitude about it because I know it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. And I do stick by that great accelerator because I really can't name one thing that's going on that we weren't going to end up doing eventually anyway.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like it's amazing to me. And speaking of positive stories, I was like you, Tony, where going into this, I refused to, especially right from the get-go, I refused to do anything negative because there was too much of that out there. So even my chat series, it was so incredible. Like I cannot tell you how uplifting this COVID was such a positive thing for mold builders. They are so incredible. I mean, I'm like bursting with pride, like even being able to work with them at all and tell their stories, because that's all they did. Everybody had some incredible lesson they learned. And talk about you guys and your teams coming together. If you were in any way part of something COVID related, I don't know how that could not have brought your teams together. Because if they didn't understand what their job was or how they were impacting the world, they know now. And it was just the first 2-3 months were just amazing. The stories I was hearing, and all of them now revisiting them, the things a lot of them have put in place because of what they learned about their people and about their processes that weren't so much wrong, but could be better. And they're implementing this stuff. It's just been amazingly positive for how crazy it has been. Really.
And it's almost like a black eye sometimes to say that, right? That COVID was a positive thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that it's good that people got sick. Nobody's saying that it's good that it happened. Nobody's saying any of that. But I think the companies that took it and embraced it for what it was and looked at the opportunities are going to be light years ahead of other people. in just the way that they do things, the way that they communicate with their staff, the way that
Yep.
they communicate with customers, the way that they
With their local community. Talk about
yeah.
communication. A lot of these shops that never once put out a press release are now in their local news because they built a tool for a ventilator. Like, it's amazing on
Yep.
the communication side, what they've learned the value of, right?
Mm.
Tell your story, share your story. What you do matters.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been great.
Sorry, Amanda, I cut you off.
No, you're okay, Tony. I'm going to throw you right back in there. What would you say is the number one thing you've strengthened about your communication during COVID?
That we've strengthened?
That you've strengthened. Mm-hmm.
I really think it's our ability to utilize technology for, the video side of things. Before, if somebody wasn't able to make a meeting, they just weren't in the meeting. And now we've set it up that we can do this, right? We bring the people that are outside back into the meeting. We are keeping people connected with things. I think that it's hard to say what we've strengthened, because I think we were doing a pretty good job beforehand with communicating with people. Getting messages out on social media or all the other platforms. I think, and that just reflects that I think communication is important. I think we have an incredibly talented, gifted team, and we're blessed to have them. And I want to show that off to everybody. So we started doing that right away. But the one area that we've grown and strengthened is being more comfortable with the video side of things, and just not making excuses that people can't be there and finding a way to get it done.
Mm. I like that. That's definitely something that has come out of WEPCO too, is, if we can't all be in there, I've been hybrid during this, we can schedule a Zoom and we can have our leadership team meeting via Zoom, because that is never something we would have done prior to March. We would have just rescheduled it or not had it.
Right.
Instead of seeing it as an opportunity of, all right, we're gonna press on, we're just gonna find a new way to do this. And Christina, what would you say is one way you've really kind of strengthened your communication skills?
On the note of what you just said, I've noticed since I've been working from home that long, since COVID, because of the Zoom and GoToMeeting and Teams, I've been brought into discussions and things that I previously wouldn't have, because I'm not in the Cincinnati office. So to me, it's been a true professional benefit, because there's no excuse now, just because they have to think of everybody intentionally. They're not just looking down the office, because nobody at Gardner's back in the office really yet. So that, I think, that's been strengthened corporately, because there's more of this going on internally too. In terms of our audience and the readers, I'm just going to send me videos, of course, something I've been doing more so than other brands. But I think we're getting better at it, that I cannot wait to be able to be back in the field, to be doing better video stories now, because we're all getting better at just what we're doing, learning how to interview, editing, all that kind of stuff, finding the stories. So I think that's a strength. And digitally, our webinars, like I said, the tech days, digital demos, to see the strength of our internal team in terms of the platforms that we're using and developing to provide digital content, have completely strengthened. I mean, out of necessity, but again, I think we were headed there anyway, because people are always, regardless of trade shows or not, people are going to want that option, right? Just in case they can't go somewhere, we want to be able to give them that very similar, if not the same, content. So yeah, digitally strengthened.
I think videos in general are going to get so much better, because Christina, how many times have you gone to do a video interview with somebody that you're going to put out on the magazine or whatever, and a camera gets put in front of their face and they can't speak? They don't remember their name. They don't remember their company. They don't know what they did. They need it scripted. And then when they try and read it, it sounds awful. And now people are just so much more comfortable just doing
talking.
it.
Yeah, they are. I agree with that. And I have to say that's a lot. You taught me that, Tony, the first time you asked me to be on a podcast. And I'm like, oh gosh, most editors, we're like, editors have their heads down and we do our writing and editing. My background is telecom, so I wasn't one of those editors. I kind of enjoyed it, but you did have to push me to do it. But what was critical was your personality. And it goes back to what you're saying, and it's communicating, being authentic. And sometimes I hate that expression, but it's very true. If you're yourself, this comes easy. just, and that's when I'm interviewing these shop guys and gals, I'm always like, it's just me. Like, we're just having a conversation, and anything can be edited. I let you say it. If you don't like the way you sound, we'll redo it. But if you just look at it that way, but you have to be yourself. If somebody, and people aren't stupid, they can tell if you're not being that way. And then their demeanor changes, they close up. So I don't know. It's an interesting skill set to kind of hone, but because part of it is just who you are. And you taught me that. Just be yourself. And if people don't like you, they don't like you. They don't like what you have to say. What can you do about it? I'm not going to fake it and try to be something that I'm not.
Because
right?
then you're going to slip up, right?
Yes, then you're going to slip up. Exactly.
And people are going to go, oh.
Yeah, right.
But I think that also feeds into a good opportunity for continuous improvement for all of us. You know, that there's nothing like, and, you know, both of you can attest to that, the first time Webco was ever on a podcast. We've come a long way since that.
One of my favorite podcasts.
We saw where we were and how we were communicating, and we wanted to make sure we could do a better job of getting our message out. And we've really worked hard on that over the years. And I think that is something, though, the first time you're in a Zoom, the first time you get interviewed, and all right, next time we're going to work on this and we're going to improve. And that's definitely what we've had an opportunity to do this past year. When you're on 3 Zooms a day, you have plenty of opportunity to improve.
Yeah, that's true. Well said.
And Sydney got thrown into doing her video blog that I think the first time she did it, it took about 6 hours for for what, a 30-minute one?
Or less.
Right.
So there's a lot of room for growth there and continuous improvement.
And I know Tony will agree with me. We got to stop overthinking that too. It goes to your, just get it done. Don't overthink it. And again, be yourself. Because I think a lot, you can overproduce something and then it's
right.
Why?
To
just
death.
Relax.
You can overproduce it to death.
Yeah.
And what I find is when I write, I use different words than when I speak. Right. So when you're writing out, like, okay, I'm going to do this video and this is what I'm going to say, I'm using words that I would never, ever, ever say. So like Amanda, you were very gracious to tell us what we're going to talk about today. I wrote it down. I didn't even look at it because I don't want to overthink it. You're asking me what these things mean to me, right? If I overthink it, by the time I'm done, 3 hours later, it may not be what I really feel. I want to just be able to answer and just know that that's what I feel. That's what it is to me.
I like that. That's a good point. And I think that there's a level of transparency and vulnerability that we've needed in our communication lately, and especially in our shops with our team. But I think they want that. Like Tony said, you want your leader, the president of the company, when he has a meeting, you want to see that. You want to know that he's not reading off of a script and telling you what you want to hear. Yeah. You want to know that he's being transparent.
We don't need politicians.
No. And I think, Sid, like watching your videos, they've come such a long way. And
I agree.
You just look so much more comfortable while you're doing it. And
that conversation we had about authenticity really helped.
Good.
It became less about performing and getting the message across. And then it became believing in the message and then being able to articulate it how I naturally would. Still learning though. I still get nervous, but that's life.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think one of the things I tell people all the time when we're doing these kinds of shows and whatever is nobody likes the way they sound. Nobody likes the way they look. But to everybody else listening, that's just how you sound.
Yeah, right. That's just you.
And they talk to you anyways, right? So they don't care how you sound. You care how you sound.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody else hears it that way all the time.
Yeah.
So
it is very humbling, right? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never once listened back to something with someone and they go, I really like the way I sound.
Yeah.
They all go, ugh.
We have a rule, Tony, at Webco. Sid knows it. If they're editing any video I've been in, they have to leave the room or put earphones in. I don't want them to do it in front of me. I will participate in what we're doing. I never watch it again. I can't because I'll overthink it. I'll dissect it. I'll overthink it. I'll want them to edit it out, to change it. So I do it and then I give it to Sydney and let her make us all better.
Good for you.
And so, all right, as we're kind
Nicholas
of,
Hutchins. Nicholas Hutchins has a question. Did you see that?
I did. Let's see. How do you go about balancing the communication of pertinent virus-related news that can be negative with positive interactions, knowing that everyone is likely concerned about overwhelming safety policies and economic uncertainty with no definitive light at the end of the tunnel? Not that there's a correct answer, but this can seem almost impossible to do when it seems the general mood can change on a whim, especially if they follow the news. That's a tough one. That's a good question.
So go ahead, Amanda.
Tony, you go first. That was definitely something we struggled with at WEPCO, and we're still struggling with a little bit. If there isn't a positive outcome, do you want my transparency and my honesty? Or do you want me to communicate something that's going to make you feel warm and fuzzy? We really struggled with that in the beginning and realized that there was more power in the communication than necessarily what we were communicating. They weren't so concerned about us having the right answer and knowing that there was a light at the end of the tunnel and being able to tell them, you know, hey, when we get towards the end of November, this will all go away. They didn't need to hear that. They just wanted to hear from us. They wanted us to be vulnerable and transparent with them. And it was something very difficult as a leader to do because you want to have all the answers. Yeah. You want to be able to tell them, you know, business is going to pick back up. We're headed down this road. You know, things are going to turn out great. And you can't always do that, especially with everything being so uncertain right now.
And let's face it, if it's not COVID, it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just life in general. So it's coping with that. And you're right. If you hone your communication skills, that's it in a nutshell. You have to communicate because it could be an earthquake tomorrow. Like who knows what it could be? I mean, COVID's just one example. That's what it is right now.
I listen to Craig Groeschel a lot. I don't know if you guys ever listen to Craig Groeschel, but he says people want to follow a leader who's real, not a leader who's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it goes back to what I was saying before when we did the COVID stuff. Everybody knows what everybody knows, right? There's none of us have any secret information that they're not sharing. So I can tell you where we are today. I can tell you what we're doing today. I can't tell you what we're doing tomorrow. Okay. I can't tell you what we're doing next week. I can't tell you what we're doing next month. I don't know. I know what we're doing right now. And that's what I'll share with you. And I'll share it openly and honestly. I mean, I don't have anything to hide. And I think that's the biggest part. Like there would never be a time in here with all this going on. If somebody asked me a question, I would say, listen, you don't need to know that. Mm-hmm. We're all in this together. We're a team here. So what do you want to know? You know, I'll tell you, what do you want to know?
Have any of you noticed the more seasoned and the younger generation handling this differently? And communication differently?
Definitely. In our shop, ironically, because if you had asked me prior to this, I probably would have said it in the reverse. Our younger ones are really, they're okay not knowing what tomorrow is going to look like, but they also haven't had that many tomorrows to know what they're going to look like. Our older workers, they're, you know, they've known what it's looked like. They haven't had something like this happen before. They are much more concerned. There's a different fear factor almost to our younger ones and our older ones. But if you had asked me, I would have flipped it. I would have said, oh, the millennials would be the ones, you know, panicking or wanting to know what's going to happen. But it hasn't really been that way in our shop. And I think it's almost been healing for all of them to do it together. For the ones that have embraced doing it together, I think that has helped them a great deal. And Nick, I don't know if this answers your question, but I think our answer is kind of that we talked it out. Mm-hmm. I think Tony his answer kind of comes down to that too. We really just kind of had to talk the negative out, and it was what it was, and we supported each other through it.
We just looked at what we could do for our team during the time versus what we didn't know or what we couldn't do. There were nights that Amanda and I sat in her kitchen and made hand sanitizer because if that's what made people comfortable, we were going to have that accessible all over the shop. And it was about telling them, like, we care about you and your families. Here's what we can do. Here's what we do have power over. And that's what we're going to do for you.
Yeah, I think that was a hard thing to to balance too was knowing that they all had situations at home, and clearly you can't send everyone at home and pay them for 6 months or, until this comes to an end. So how do we show that we're empathetic and that we're supporting them? And we really had to take that to a one-on-one, day by day conversation. And to the point that I literally think almost every team member in the shop now has my cell phone number, which happened over a series of 6 months. Wow. Because that was how our communication changed. We couldn't have our stand-up meetings anymore. And not all of them read the newsletters that puts out, but it was a lot more comforting to them to be able to send me a text message, and I can check on them that way. They could check on me, and we could kind of keep that communication going. And I have never had that relationship with machine operators in 4 years until recently.
That's so neat. I think that's neat in a way.
And just like what you're saying, when we put out a memo, right, that said, this is what we're doing. And then later that night, exactly what you're saying, Amanda, I made sure I had everybody's phone number, and I texted everybody individually saying, what's going on? How are you feeling? Did everything make sense? Do you have any questions? Just easy, right? I mean, but you just, as a leader, you have to be willing to invest that time and care and want to, right?
And that should have been that way anyway, again, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have these things if your team can't get a hold of you?
Yeah.
So you should have been doing that anyway. That's interesting.
I know. Isn't that funny? We used to protect our cell phone numbers so much.
Yes.
And now with me working at home, I'm like, here you go.
Here you go. Yeah. That's a really great observation.
Yeah.
So to close it out, what do you guys see coming for us communication-wise next year? Where do you see it going for the industry and for our companies and for yourself?
Where do I see communication going? I think it's going to be more of the same. I think, we were on an AMBA call a while back, and somebody had asked, how are your customer visits going? Are people doing in-house, or are you able to go places, or what's that going to look like in the future? And I think the answer is what we've been saying. I don't know. Some customers are going to invite you in right away. Like we were talking before we did this, right? I would have no problem going to see people because I feel comfortable with things, but it's up to the individual that you're dealing with. If customers want to come in here, I would welcome customers to come in here. If they want us to come in to see them, we're going in to see them. We have a job to do, and that's to turn out good results for the people we're doing work with. If we're going to get better results by going to see them, that's what we're going to do, because that's important to us, and that's what the communication is. As far as what it's going to look like for trade shows or whatever, I think Christina and her team did a great job for the first ever completely virtual trade show. And I think that they'll tell you that they learned a lot of things that they're going to do differently in the next one. If they ever have to do another one, I hope that it doesn't have to do another one, and what that would look like. But I think we just all have to be open to accepting that we don't know, and just being very comfortable in where we're at, and trusting that it's going to work out and the answers are going to come as they do, and not waiting for one giant decision, but making a decision and then making a decision based on that decision, and just taking small steps instead of just trying to run to the end, right? It's just, let's chip away. Let's keep the ball moving forward. Let's just do what we can do today, and the rest will work out.
Well said, Tony. I like that.
Aside from all things tech and all things digital, when it comes to communication, I think that we have learned during this time how to listen more than ever. When the state needed PPE, we said, we're going to do this. When masks weren't working for school children who were hearing impaired, we said, we're going to make clear face masks where you can see people's lips moving. I just hope that we can take how we've learned to listen and apply it to everything that we do in the workplace, to all of our workplace efforts, and to our own lives. I hope we can listen like that all the time and respond.
I would say that. I think people are going to continue to they're going to get more and more open with sharing. I see that. And I think in our professional, for gardener, for mole making, the word is hybrid. I think we're moving into a time where we're never going to be able to just have a regular trade show anymore. I think for anything we do, we have to think of some hybrid approach to get everybody the content they need when they need it, where they need it, how they want it, right? So it's hybrid's probably going to be where, which again, we're headed that way anyway. That's what I think.
That's good. I think for me and for us at Webco, we are definitely going to transition into this next year, focusing on really being more intentional about our communication, not just sending out the biweekly newsletter because it's what we do, or putting out notices to our team on the engagement board, but what are we really communicating? What is really our intention, or what are we not communicating by what we're not drawing attention to? I think that's where we're going to have to focus this coming year.
And I think, to piggyback on that, on the intentionality, I mean, Christina and I are on the SPE Mold Technologies division together, and we've had conversations about the intention of it and what are we doing and what's the purpose, and is it serving the people who are our members, and are we doing it the right way? And being willing to ask those questions and possibly make yourself look stupid, right? And ask people, what do you need from me? How can I help you? How can I serve you? What purpose do I have for you in your life? Because I may think I know what you need from me, but I have no idea.
Yeah. Don't ask unless you really want the answer, right?
Exactly. And then be okay with the answer, right?
Yes.
Be willing to listen to
act
it
on it.
and be okay with it instead of getting defensive and go, no, I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. I came across that way. How should I say it better next time? But we just put out a newsletter for the SPE, and the first thing we asked people was, this organization's been around for a long time. What do you need from us? What would bring value to you as a member? What would make you consider joining as a member? And I think we have to do that with our employees, our team members, our family members, everybody, and just ask them, what do you need from me?
We have to start that conversation, right?
Yeah.
You can't have a conversation if someone doesn't start it. I think that's a great point, Tony. I think all of us, and we've seen that in Connecticut with our manufacturing organizations too, we've started to really ask, what kind of programming do you want? What are you going to see value in? How can we support you? Things that maybe we wouldn't have asked before. That's good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I love that we could have Christina and Tony be part of our Manufacturing Month events. This is something we probably wouldn't have done before since you wouldn't have been able to join us in person. So it's very exciting. And Tony, we are going to be tuning in for the chat and chows. We're excited and to see what mold making technology chats with next.
Yep.
And Sydney will have some great blogs out for us. And then Webco will be back. We'll be back next Thursday at 2:00 talking about leadership. So we hope that you'll join us for that conversation. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it and putting in all the effort.
This was great.
It was great.